CDL drivers aren't treated the same as regular drivers. The same ticket that's a minor inconvenience for a Class C driver can have serious, long-lasting consequences for your CDL. Here's what the law holds you to a higher standard. In this video, I'm going to explain why CDL drivers are held to a higher legal standard than regular Class C drivers, how this affects everything from negotiations in court, and why trying to handle a CDL ticket the same way your non-commercial friends do almost always backfires. Hey, Mark Bigger here. I'm an attorney who grew up in a family of professional drivers, racked up plenty of miles, and got my fair share of tickets, so I started fighting them. It turned out I wasn't too bad at it. Now that's all our firm does in court. If you've got a ticket, you want to speak with an attorney who you can trust, give us a call at 661-859-1177. Let me start by explaining why this double standard exists in the first place, because understanding the legal rationale helps you see why courts treat CDL cases differently. What's the legal rationale behind stricter standards for commercial drivers? The heightened legal standard for CDL drivers comes from both federal and state law, and it's based on a straightforward principle. Commercial drivers operate vehicles that pose greater risk to public safety. An 80,000-pound tractor trailer traveling at highway speeds has exponentially more destructive potential than a 3,000-pound passenger car. Because of this, the law requires commercial drivers to demonstrate higher levels of skill, responsibility, and judgment. Federal motor carrier safety regulations establish minimum standards that all CDL holders must meet regardless of what state they're in. These regulations cover everything from medical fitness to hours of service to vehicle maintenance. The underlying assumption is that if you're being paid to drive and you're operating heavy commercial equipment, you're accepting a higher duty of care to the public. California law reinforces this by imposing stricter penalties for violations committed while driving commercially. For example, 2 cell phone violations for a regular driver in a 3-year period is an infraction with a fine and no points if they take traffic school for the second offense. But for a commercial CDL holder operating a commercial vehicle, the same 2 cell phone violations will trigger a 60-day suspension and 1.5 points on their state driving record. Courts also recognize that CDL holders are professionals who should know better. When you obtained your CDL, you had to pass more rigorous testing than Class C drivers. You demonstrated knowledge of air brake systems, combination vehicles, and hazardous materials in some cases. The legal system treats you as someone who has been trained to a higher standard and therefore should be held accountable to that standard. This isn't about punishing truck drivers unfairly. It's about acknowledging that professional drivers have both greater responsibility and greater potential to cause harm. With that responsibility comes increased scrutiny when violations occur. How does this higher standard affect court negotiations and plea options? When judges handle CDL cases, they oftentimes approach them with a different mindset than Class C cases, and this affects what outcomes are available. This can actually go both ways depending on the judge. Many judges will consider giving truckers a non-point deal where the charge is not egregious. The rationale is that 1, truckers can't take traffic school like regular drivers, 2, it's their livelihood on the line, and 3, the 55 miles per hour speed limit actually is the lowest west of the Mississippi River other than the state of Hawaii, which is an island. But still other judges take the tack that commercial drivers are professionals and should not receive any breaks on their record. This is how Kern and Los Angeles counties treat commercial drivers. Traffic school is another area where it seems like there is a double standard. For Class C drivers, traffic school keeps the conviction confidential and prevents insurance increases. But for CDL holders, traffic school isn't an option if they were pulled over in their commercial vehicle. If they were pulled over in their personal vehicle, they can take traffic school, but the conviction is not confidential. Federal law requires all convictions involving CDL holders to be reported to CDLIS regardless of traffic school completion. So even if the court allows you to take traffic school, the conviction still appears on your MVR and your employer and the feds can still see it. This is why plea options that work perfectly for Class C drivers often accomplish little for CDL holders. Taking traffic school might seem like a good idea until you realize it doesn't actually protect your violation from the public. Why does using a Class C mindset to handle CDL tickets usually backfire? One of the biggest mistakes CDL drivers make is treating their tickets the same way non-commercial drivers do. They think they can just pay the fine, take traffic school, or show up to court without preparation and get the same lenient treatment their friends get. But that approach almost always makes things worse. Let's say you get a ticket and decide to just pay it to make it go away. For a Class C driver, that's the end of it. They pay the fine, their insurance rates will probably go up a little bit, but life moves on. But for a CDL holder, paying that fine means you're convicted. The conviction gets reported to CDLIS, and your employer reviews the incident. What you thought was a quick resolution just became a long-term career problem. Or let's say you decide to represent yourself in court because you think it's straightforward. Class C drivers do this all the time and sometimes get favorable outcomes just by being polite and explaining their circumstances. But when CDL holders try this, they're oftentimes surprised to find that they may be treated what seems differently. For instance, traffic school normally isn't available as a way for the judge to bail you out. Another common mistake is assuming that because the ticket seems minor, it won't matter. A Class C driver might shrug off a following too closely citation as no big deal. But for a CDL holder, that same citation can be classified as a serious violation, particularly if it occurred in a commercial vehicle, and 2 serious violations in 3 years equals a 60-day CDL suspension. What seems minor to a non-commercial driver can be career-threatening for a professional driver. The Class C mindset also fails when it comes to understanding how employers evaluate violations. Regular drivers don't have to worry about CSA scores, PSP reports, or DOT compliance reviews. They're only concerned with their MVR and their insurance rates. But CDL holders operate in a completely different risk environment where violations affect employability, insurance costs for their company, and eligibility for certain types of freight. Using a Class C approach to a CDL problem means you're not managing the risks that actually matter for your career. What should CDL drivers do differently when facing violations? The key is recognizing from the start they are operating under different rules and need a different strategy. You can't handle a CDL ticket the way your non-commercial friends handle theirs and expect good results. First, understand that the goal isn't just to minimize fines or avoid points in your California MVR. The goal is to protect your PSP, your CSA score, your employability, and your long-term ability to drive commercially. This requires thinking about how violations get classified under federal regulations, not just state law. Second, recognize that traffic school and reduced charges don't provide the same benefits for CDL holders as they do for Class C drivers. You need outcomes that prevent convictions from being reported to CDL-IS entirely if you can, which usually means fighting for dismissals or negotiating very specific charge reductions that don't trigger federal reporting. Third, don't assume prosecutors and judges will give you the same treatment as regular drivers. You're held to a higher standards on the road sometimes, and the legal system expects you to act like the professional you claim to be when you got your CDL. This means being prepared, presenting strong defenses, and demonstrating that you take violations seriously. CDL drivers operate under a different set of rules than Class C drivers in some instances, and the legal system holds you to higher standards because of the responsibility you carry. Understanding this double standard is critical to protecting your career. Using strategies that work for regular drivers almost always backfires when you're a professional behind the wheel. If you've received a traffic ticket and want to know how you can fight it, give us a call at 661-859-1177. We offer a free consultation to help you understand your options. Don't let a simple ticket turn into a bigger headache. Let us guide you through the process and fight for the best possible outcome. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more practical legal advice. Tap the next video to keep learning and stay ahead of your next ticket.